Welcome to Let's Talk Horses. I'm your host, Jason Vance. Joining me today is Kathy Anderson, an Extension Equine Specialist at the University of Nebraska. Today we're going to talk about how to know if your mare is ready to be bred. And Kathy, what is the first thing that you need to look for when you're wanting to breed your mare?
Well, really what I'd say probably one of the first things is she really truly cycling? Mares are what we call long day breeders, and they're going to really come in and cycle depending on the season of the year. So left to nature, most of our mares are going to go ahead and cycle, we'll say depending on where you're at in the country, somewhere between April and May. It's going to vary a little bit as you move north and south because naturally horses in the southern areas, say down in Texas and that, might cycle a little bit earlier than ones that might be up in North Dakota. But we want to make sure that she's cycling. And one of the indicators of that she really has come out of winter, what we call winter anestrus, when they're pretty much shut down, is if you look at their hair coat. Because horses' hair coat is also the length of it, and those winter hair coats, they're going to grow those when the day length is short. And so as we come out of the winter time and those mares begin to lose their hair and move more into their summer hair coat, that's another outward indicator that those mares probably are beginning to come in and cycle.
So once you know that she maybe is cycling, or how do you know that she's in a stage of her cycle where she's ready to be bred?
All right. Most mares are going to go through and do what we call tease, and we grade them on a scale 0 to 4, 4 being the very highest where they're the deepest in heat, and a 1 or a 0 being where they're out of heat. And so some of the different things that those mares will typically do is they'll be very interested in the stallion or in the male horse. They'll raise their tail, they'll urinate, they'll do what we call wink at their vulva, where it's a contraction of their vulva, and do all of those types of things. As they're coming into heat, they'll slowly get more of those behavioral signs or more intense of those signs, and then as they're going out of heat, those will lessen and reduce, because when a mare's not in heat, she doesn't want anything to do with the stallion and some of those types of things. She's very negative towards them. Now the thing to remember is some mares will show all of those signs very intensely, and it's very, very easy to tell. Other mares will show just a few of those. Some mares, they're in heat if they just prick their ears up and look at the stallion. And so it becomes important to be a good manager of your mares and know what's familiar for each individual one, because they do tend to be consistent amongst themselves, meaning that if a mare always teases a very deep 4, she's going to do that most of the time. However, the important ones are to know those mares that don't tease very much and know what those very subtle signs are that she might actually be in heat.
Now, you talked about teasing, but some farms have moved away from teasing and use some other methods.
Right. With today's technology, and to tease horses, it takes some time. You have to have a stallion that you go around there with. So some farms, and many of your bigger breeding farms, have really gone to just doing the diagnostic tools of ultrasounding those mares and palpation of their ovaries. And there they can go in with your veterinarian and will do those things, and they can actually look and see the mare's ovaries and feel the mare's ovaries and know what size of follicles that they're developing when they begin to soften, when they're close to ovulation. With that, they can also feel and look at the environment or the health of the mare's uterus, and also tell from their cervix if they're getting soft and relaxed, because that's another indicator that those mares are getting ready to be bred, because their cervix will soften too.
Now, if a mare is not cycling, how can, what might be causing that?
Well, one of the first things we think about for a mare that's not cycling is that we look at her body condition score. It's a telltale thing with horses and most other species that if they're too skinny, those mares probably are not going to come in and cycle. So we condition score them on a scale of 1 to 9. And anything that's a 4 or below and they're not cycling, it's a pretty good indicator that maybe they're just too skinny to cycle, and you need to get them up and put some weight on them and get them a little bit healthier. If she's in a good body condition score, really anything over a 5, because the fat mares, that's really not been an issue of them not cycling because of their weight. So then you have to start looking at some other kind of investigative things, some other diagnostic things, some hormonal things and things like that, to get some other answers as far as what the problem might be.
So how can you go about, if mares aren't cycling, getting them to cycle?
Well, one thing that is a common practice in the industry is for folks to put their mares under lights if they want them to cycle earlier in the year, so maybe they can have those foals in January, February, and March. Because normally, well, on their 11-month gestation length, they're going to foal, sometime, usually in April, May, that time of year. So what many farms will do is they'll put those mares under lights, which means they need to be in an area with some overhead lights, some bright lights, so that they put those mares under lights about 3 months before they want them to go ahead and be able to be bred. So that's one thing you can use to stimulate those mares to go ahead and cycle. It takes several months for that to happen, particularly if you want them done earlier in the year. Then there are also other hormonal therapies and different things like that that a person can do. That's when it comes into play that you start, if you're not familiar with reproduction in horses, that you get in contact with a really good equine reproduction veterinarian that kind of has a lot of experience with that, because there are different kind of hormonal management things that a person can do. But you need to be pretty experienced and understand what you're doing, because it's not as simple as give a mare a shot and get her to come into heat. There's more timing and planning and evaluation of the mare, of her ovaries in the state and where she might be, to try to get the best bang for your buck and make sure that you're going in a positive way and not interrupting and doing things more that would be more negative.
Well, Kathy, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It was good.